right.
Thanks,
Here we
Graham.
go.
Okay, I got a
Here
little
it
video
is.
we're going to show real quick.
Okay.
This is my anniversary gift?
Yep.
A vacuum cleaner?
Dual bag. This is the best vacuum cleaner you'll ever have, baby.
Get in there.
What? Not a big fan of that look. I got you.
New arrival in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What is this place?
You are in the doghouse.
Listen.
Doghouse?
Since time immemorial, when men have messed up, they get sent here by their wives or girlfriends. Fold.
Yeah, but I don't deserve to be here. I didn't do anything.
Every man in the doghouse thinks he's innocent. Isn't that right, boys?
Look, all I know is that I got my wife this really nice gift, and then now here.
What'd you get her?
This brand new dual bag vacuum cleaner, actually.
Hear that, boys? He got our vacuum cleaner.
You're a fool, man.
Express your
Oh, it was dual bag.
And dual bag doesn't know why he's here.
I realize it's not the most romantic gift, but
There are many reasons a man can end up in here.
Hey, dual bag. All I did was tell my wife that her mom looked hot in a bathing suit. It was a compliment. I was just trying to be nice.
Listen
That's bull.
She was smoking, though.
Apologize without caveat.
She was smoking.
I told my wife that staying home with the kids was a heck of a lot easier than having to actually work for a living.
Change diapers.
Pops. See, a lot of guys end up in here during the holidays because they give their wives thoughtless gifts, like a vacuum cleaner.
I got my wife extra RAM memory for her computer as a gift. I even attached a note that said, "Thank you for the memories." Didn't go down very well.
Help with the cooking.
That's Oscar. He's been here so long, he's plain lost his mind. Legend has it he gave his wife a mustache waxer during the holidays.
What is that on your lip?
Talk more. But don't
how
interrupt.
do you get out?
Listen better.
It's real hard.
Apologize without
I just got reviewed last week. I went up before this review board.
Let's review your offense.
Merry Christmas.
Seriously?
What? Thought you'd want to tighten up that jelly belly, no?
Wow! I'm married to you.
A little more of this, and a little less of that.
Wow.
I think we've seen enough. So, Donnie, you think you're ready to rejoin your lovely wife?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Donald, I'll be candid. If I had my way, you wouldn't even go before this board.
I don't know what I was thinking when I gave my wife an abscessizer as a gift.
Stupid, stupid, stupid.
So next time you'd get her something truly nice, like a gym membership, perhaps.
Exactly. I mean, no, I wouldn't get her that. I wouldn't get her that. I wouldn't get her that. Please. Stupid, I just want to get out of here. You like that?
Apologize.
Yeah.
Did I fool you?
But yeah,
I didn't fool them. Set up. Trick question. I'm out the door.
Work on the folding, Donnie. Bye-bye.
Listen
is there any hope? Can you get out of here?
without caveat.
One man got out.
Express your
Arnold.
feelings. Help with the cooking. Stop checking out other women in restaurants.
He sent us this.
Offer to change diapers.
Arnold's wife let him out of the doghouse.
Talk more.
Not sure how he did it.
But don't interrupt.
Hey, lunch!
But don't interrupt.
What is this? Cheese pie?
Speak less.
Quiche. Chai lattes every night.
There we go. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I thought that video was very fitting, especially with Valentine's Day coming in 48 hours. gentlemen, so and women. So don't be a dual bag this Thanksgiving. So, all right, I'm sorry, this Valentine's Day. So today I'm here to talk about building a stronger emotional connection with your spouse. And I'm going to be honest, guys, I'm not a public speaker. I think I mentioned last week I was just a participant last session, and I really felt like God was calling me to come up here and share a little bit about the 5 love languages and building a stronger emotional connection. So that's what we're going to do today. Before I do that, real quick recap. Again, my name's Dan Migliore. Been going to Venture for quite a while, since Chip Ingram was here, and my wife, Chrissy Migliore, is in the back, if you can kind of just wave your hand there. She's been fantastic supporting me over the last several weeks as I've been preparing for this. So I liked sharing this picture. This is a picture of me in 2016. It was up there as probably one of the best days of my life. And it was October 16, 2016. It was a day where I ran a half Ironman. So it was about a mile swim. I'm not a swimmer, so that was really challenging, but I got through that. 56-mile bike, and then a half marathon after that. And I think what made this day so special was that I had my wife and my kids there the entire time cheering me on. And I did several laps around this tent over here. And every time I did a lap, I saw my family there cheering me on, just kind of rooting me, supporting me, and just being there for me. So very special day. And I think what even made this even more special was 10 months before this picture was taken, I was diagnosed with colon cancer. So it was quite a journey, and it was actually quite amazing time in my life to know that I have a spouse there to support me. And that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today, is building that stronger emotional connection with your spouse. So let's see, a couple quick things. Let's see, I've got that. So that was one period in my life. There was another time I remember early on in my marriage, and I remember talking to somebody last week about this. We got married, and it was about probably the first year or two of our marriage, and I went to a marriage seminar, and it was with Venture Church. I'll never forget this. It was quite a while ago. It was about 20 years ago. And I'm in this room with a bunch of people, kind of similar to this, but only men. And I didn't know very many people. And there was this older guy there. And they said, Bill, can you come to the front and just share a little bit? We know that you've been married for 50 years. And I remember thinking, gosh, 50 years, that's so long. They said, Bill, can you come up here and share, what's the secret of being married for 50 years? And so Bill kind of, comes up, he's kind of slow. And he says, it's totally straight face. So, it's pretty easy, actually. He said, early on in our marriage, me and my wife came to the agreement that I would make all the major decisions and she would make all the minor decisions. And so far, there's been no major decisions. So, I thought that was really good. So, but in all seriousness, a marriage is a two-way street, right? And so marriages will have some good times. You also have bad times. So early on in my marriage, I remember early on in my professional career, I was a young adult trying to survive here in the Bay Area, and I started a new sales job. And the job, I would have to get there 6:30 in the morning, and usually I'd be there till 6:30, 7 o'clock every day. And I just remember working long hours. It was very stressful. And when I came home, all I wanted to do is just have my wife acknowledge me and just kind of welcome me, maybe give me a hug and just say hello when I came home. I didn't always get that. And I realized she's been with the kids all day, and so the last thing she wants to do is be with the kids longer. She wants to give the kids to me so she can go and do her own thing. So that time was a little bit difficult, and that's where I struggled feeling a love connection with my wife, is when I didn't feel received. So you can hopefully kind of see a contrast here. Is this one of the best days of my life versus early on in our marriage when I worked long hours and I just wanted to be seen and loved. So we're going to be talking about those differences today. So one of my favorite things I love to talk about is God's love. And this is one of my favorite verses of all time in the Bible. Love is not always easy. But it's a universal need that we all have, and we all need to feel loved. And I think truly, if we think about it, at the heart of our Creator, we were made to love other people, but we were also made to receive love as well. And so, again, we're going to talk a little bit about that. Jesus was a fantastic model of the Bible on how to love. And I think part of it is when we have God in our life, God is that model of love, but after God, I like to think that our spouse or our significant other is that next person we need to go to for that love. And so it's really important. I really feel that there's some people in this room that today are not getting that love from their spouse, and maybe that's why you're here, or maybe you are getting it and that's why you're here. But we're going to dig a little deeper into that today, and my hope is that you guys are, by the end of today, are going to feel a little bit closer to your spouse, and if not, be able to speak your spouse's language where you can feel closer. So we'll dive into that a little bit more here. Kind of what I've been talking about. What makes one person feel loved emotionally is not what makes another person feel emotionally. I don't know who wrote that, so I'm going to take credit for it. So Dan Migliore came up with that. So if you want to quote that, just let him know that Dan came up with that. I think one of the things with this is it's important to remember, someone had shared with me the megaphone principle. And the megaphone principle is something like this, where you could do something small for your spouse. Maybe Chrissy being there for my Ironman was something small she did. But to me, I received that as such a big investment in our marriage. And vice versa. When I came home from a long day's work and I didn't get that love from my spouse, again, that was something small on her side that I didn't get, but I amplified that myself. So there's that megaphone principle. And so we're going to talk about how we receive love differently. Each of us has our own language, and we're going to talk a little bit. Sometimes I look at, it's easy to love when you're feeling loved, but it is very difficult to love when you're not getting that love yourself. So we're going to dive into how can we love better even when we're not super full of love ourselves, okay? So how do we go about doing that when it's not a natural thing? Well, we're going to dive into Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages, The Secret of Love That Lasts. Depending on who you ask, the book was first published either 1992 or 1995 as a New York bestseller between 2009 and 2013. I think there's been over 10 million copies sold of this book. And I think it's been written in over 50 languages. So if you have read this book, my overview today is just going to be that, a quick overview. If you haven't read the book, it's going to be a quick introduction. Just with a show of hands, and I can barely see anybody out here, but a show of hands, who has read this book before? Okay, so that's a big majority. You guys made my job super easy. Most of you guys have read it. Perfect. So, but we'll go over a little bit about what the book's about. And if you're like me, you've probably read it, but it might have been a long time ago. And so your love languages, some of the things you got out of this might have changed. So we're going to dive in a little bit deeper on that. So here's our goal for the day. There's 5 things we're going to cover. We're going to learn about love languages. We're going to talk about our emotional love tank and what that's about. Hopefully, I'm going to help you identify, if you don't already know, what your primary love language is. And I'm going to challenge you, even if you think you know what it is, we'll have a survey at the table you can do later on. You can take that survey and just see if it still aligns with your current love language. And then we're going to help identify your spouse's love language. And then we'll have some homework, some Valentine's Day homework for all of you. So I do want to point out what we're going to learn today is just a small part of a bigger picture about that emotional connection. And last week, Graham talked about creating that heart-level transformation. So my goal and my hope is that this will be one part, some of the conversations we'll have in the coming weeks, and the safety and behavioral safety of our marriage, and then the courageous conversations we're going to learn about, that will kind of bring a holistic approach to our marriages. So with that said, let's jump in. What is our love tank? So I like to look at every day we have the opportunity to be selfish with our love and look after our own needs or desires, or we can actually take action and choose to direct that love to our spouse. And that's kind of what I talked about earlier. That's not always easy to do, especially when we're not feeling loved. But I like to look at it by choosing to love your spouse. You're choosing to invest in a deeper emotional connection with your spouse. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why we're all here investing in venture marriage. So I'm really excited to dig into a little bit more on that. When we invest in loving our spouse, we're actively choosing to love our spouse over ourselves. And that choosing to love our spouse over ourselves, that's what Gary Chapman talks about as the love tank. Okay? And it's filling your spouse's love tank. When we choose to talk to our spouse in a loving manner and choose to talk in our spouse's love language, we're choosing to fill our spouse's love tank. And as we all know, as my friends would always say, happy wife is a happy life. So if we can keep our spouse's love tank full, our marriages are happy, our life is happy. In general, life is just even better. But again, conversely, like my long days at work, when our love tank is empty, we feel empty, right? We feel separated and disconnected in our marriage. And I have the sense that God has put me up here to talk to people in both categories. I have the sense that there's people here that do feel separated and disconnected in their marriage. And again, my goal and my prayer over the last month, praying for everybody here, is that maybe through what you're going to be learning over the next couple weeks here, and even today, we're going to help kind of improve on that separation and that disconnection. So I like comparing the love tank. It's very similar to your car, right? My wife's car takes premium unleaded, and during the high gas prices, my wife constantly wanted to put just regular unleaded. I had to tell her every time. I said, hey, our car does not work as efficiently when we don't put the fuel in that it needs. And our bodies and our love is the same way. We need to talk at an emotional level that we can understand and gather. So let's dig into that. I've totally lost where I'm at on my thing, but let's go into it. Okay, we got our 5 love languages here, and some of these, again, may be new to some of you guys. Words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, acts of service, and receiving gifts. And like I said, some of you are already going to be familiar with this. I want to take a real quick poll again. Out of the people in the room, how many of you would say, and again, probably the ones that obviously know the book, how many of you would say you already know what your current love language is? That's a pretty good. Okay, good. That's pretty good. And then with that said, how many of you would say you know your spouse's love language? A little bit less, but just almost as many. That's good. So it's funny. I prior to coming up here, I went up on stage, or I went up in front of some friends and presented to them. And I asked that same question. They both raised their hand. I said, "Okay, well, what's your spouse's love language?" And they said the totally wrong thing. So it was kind of funny to me that they felt like they knew what their spouse's love language is. So and also they may change over time. Gary Chapman says usually they don't, but I find that maybe they do change a little bit over time. So we're going to dig into that. And we're going to talk about, as I go through these, what I want you to think about is which one of these kind of tugs at your heart the most. And as one of my friends in the back said, for women, maybe all 5 of those tug at your heart. But in all seriousness, there's a primary love language we all have. And so as we go through each of these, if you don't know your love language, I want you to think about which one really speaks to you as we go through these. Let's see, I just want to make sure I got everything. Oh yeah, the other thing I want to say is, again, you might have more than one. Again, one's a primary, but we call that being multilingual. You may have, like for me, maybe you guys can already tell what my love language is. Do you know based on what I shared so far? Quality time, correct. Mine is quality time. Next is words of affirmation. So we'll go through those, but again, being multilingual, you may have more than one love language that speaks to your spouse and speaks love into your life, but we all have a primary one. So let's dig in a little bit deeper. Words of affirmation. Mark Twain said, I can live for 2 months on a good compliment. I love that. I'll never forget, we were with some friends, and Chrissy one time told some friends of mine, Dan is one of the nicest people I know. And I don't know if I've ever told her this, but that meant a lot to hear her say that. And being somebody whose love language is words of affirmation, it's about making a verbal connection. So I'm just going to ask around the room. You can go ahead and just kind of shout out, what are some examples of words of affirmation that maybe, if that's your love language, what are some examples? Just go ahead and shout out. You're doing a good job. Yeah. I appreciate you. Yeah. Looking. Yes, I'm impressed. I like what you're doing. Yeah. Affirming. I'm sorry? I respect you. Yeah. Yeah, before my stepdad passed away, I remember one time he gave me a big hug. He said, Dan, you are a fantastic father. I was thinking, gosh, what a great thing to hear. If your love language is words of affirmation, when someone comes and affirms you like that, it doesn't have to be your spouse, it can be anybody, but words of affirmation, just as we share, it's verbal compliments. Words of appreciation, you're doing well. Encouraging words, kind words. A lot of it, it's about the tone that's taken as well. So it's affirming in front of others, as my wife did. And basically, it's unsolicited compliments and reasons behind it. So if your spouse's love language, if you think, is words of affirmation, Valentine's Day coming up, that's a great time to really affirm your spouse, regardless of Valentine's or not. So that's the first one. Second one, physical touch. Now, Jesus recognized the importance of showing love for others. For those of you with physical touch as your love language, what are some examples of physical touch? And I don't know, who was the person that yelled out sex last time? We're not going to, sex might be one of them, but yeah. What are some examples of physical touch? Hugs, yeah. Holding hands, yeah. Caressing, that's a great one. Touching, just stroking someone's hair, yeah. Massage, yeah, those are all great ones. So one of the things I love is when Chrissy and I go walking, she'll just sometimes reach down and just hold my hand as we walk. And that, again, physical touch is not my love language, but that's just another way that I feel loved by my spouse. Showing affection, holding hands, those are all really big. It doesn't have to be sexual in nature. Just sitting. You know, I was talking to my friends the other day, and they said, when we sit on the couch, she sits on one side of the couch, and I sit on the other side. And she said, I know her love language is physical touch. I'm just going to sit next to her and just put my arm on her. That's really all it is. It's not just about proximity, but it's being present with them. That's kind of the main one. Let's see, next one. Yeah. Mark Twain. Oh, yeah. All right, let's see. Can I go back? Yeah, you got it? There we go. There we go. Perfect. All right. You guys are throwing me off here. Okay, perfect. Quality time. Yes, as you guys guessed, that's my love language. And again, the central aspect of quality time is just that, being quality time together. Quality time's my love language. During that season of my life with my cancer and my Ironman, that was probably one of the most special times in my life. You know, and oddly enough, and this is probably somewhat of an exception, but during COVID, both my daughters were home from college. They studied at home. I was home. My wife was home. We had some very fun times together. And COVID was very difficult for a lot of people. But for me, somebody who has quality time as their love language, that time is very precious. So what are some examples of quality time? You guys kind of go ahead and yell it out. Kind of talked a little bit about that already. Dates. I love that. Yeah. Go for a walk together. Yeah. Focused conversation. Those are beautiful. Yeah. Together time. Quality conversation. Focused attention. My daughter's love language is also quality time. And what's special to her is when you put down your phone or you put down what you're doing, you turn yourself and you look directly at her. And that's the same thing with your spouse. Quality time person loves that presence. When I came home from a long day of work, and Chrissy, I'll never forget, there was one time I came home, my daughter just came running to me and gave me a hug. And I was like, oh my God, everything I'm going through right now is all worth because, just again, being there with my family, that was really a special time. So if your love language is quality time or your spouse's, it's just that time together is really special. So next one. Acts of service. You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and your teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you as an example that you should do as I have done. And I love it because, again, Jesus, going back to the Bible, Jesus was a beautiful example of the different love languages. As a matter of fact, one thing that I actually got out of Gary Chapman's book, it was actually kind of cool. He said that a lot of times when we read the Bible, the verses or the sections of the Bible that connect with us most are the ones that are our love languages. So if your love language is acts of service, this verse, for example, might be very meaningful to you. Or again, the quality time one, where Jesus spends times with his disciples, or the ones about loving you, affirmation. Those might be have extra meaning to you. So I thought that was a really neat point. So principles of acts of service. Let's just talk about them. It comes down to easing the burden of responsibility. If your love language is acts of service, it's all about giving that person your time, investing in them. Our daughter, her love language is not principles of serving. My wife's is principle of serving. She likes it when I would come home, and I used to say, honey, you know what? I love what a great mother you are. I love how hard you work. And she was like, okay, thank you. But what made her feel better was when I came home and I put my jacket away, or I took care of the kids, or I made dinner that night. That was her love language. When I did acts of service for her, I did something for her that she wanted me to do without having her ask me, right? That's the key. Doing something for your spouse. And that's going to be part of our homework we'll do this week, okay? Doing something for your spouse without them having to ask. Doing something your spouse would like you to do. Next one, receiving gifts. This is the one my daughter's is. This is about the gift of self, investing. I'm just curious, who's here that knows their love language is receiving gifts? Do we have anybody? We got one back there, 2, 3. Okay, that's good. 4 maybe? Yeah. Your husband? Yes. Yeah. And you know, if your spouse is receiving gifts, they love, like an example, I used to always come home from business trips and I'd bring gifts home. And one daughter was like, thanks, Dad. The other one just loved it. She would stand at the door waiting, Dad, what was my gift? What was my gift? Right? If your love language or your spouse's love language is gifts, Valentine's can be a big day, right? It's the anticipation of something coming up, like a holiday. And you can build it up. I would build it up. Oh, honey, I got you a great birthday gift. You're going to love it. No pressure, yeah. So again, it's an opportunity to show your love, but your investment in love, right? And your investment. And cost doesn't need to be a matter of, it doesn't need to matter, really. It's again what you're putting into it. It shows your spouse that you're thinking of them. I think those are all of them. Let's see, how are we doing on time? We're doing good on time. Okay. Talked about that visual symbol of your love, Cost doesn't matter. It's an investment of yourself. All right. So good. I went through that nice and quick. As Graham had mentioned, what's most important to me here is that we have time together as a group. We'll have some questions, some discussion questions. There's discussion questions at your table. We'll go through. We're going to spend about 10 minutes doing that. And then after we're done with the discussion questions, what we're going to do is I'm going to have you guys break up with your spouse. I shouldn't say break up with your spouse. It's come together with your spouse. It's the opposite of what I mean. Come together with your spouse, and we're going to talk about these questions. Honey, what's my love language? And you share that. Spouse, what's your love language? You're going to share that. You're going to discuss ways on how you can speak your spouse's love language this week. And then the homework, if all goes well, you're going to, on your 4x6 or 5x8 business card I have on your table, you're going to write down 2, maybe 1 to 3 things that you can do this week to help fill your spouse's love tank. Okay? But we'll get to that. So the first part, group leaders, you'll have some questions at your table. And here's what I want you guys to do. We also have a survey. If you do not know your love language or you want to take the survey, it's a 30-question survey. It takes about 5 to 6 minutes. So if you want, you can go ahead and take the survey. At the back, there's an area where you can total your results and it will tell you what your love language is. So why don't we take about 10 minutes to do that right now? I'll come back up and then we'll have our one-on-one time together with your spouse. Thank you. Just going to wrap things up at your table. What we're going to do next, hopefully you guys had enough time to take your little survey. You got an update on, I'm just kind of curious, for the people who took the survey, did anybody have a change in their love language? Yeah, we got to, oh wow, okay, that's good. That's good. Okay. So here's what we're going to do next. We're going to grab the 3, there's a 5x8 card on your table. If leaders or anybody can pass those out. You're going to meet up with your spouse. Turn towards your spouse, especially if their love language is quality time and focused attention. We're going to go over 3 things. I'm going to leave this slide up. 1, share what your love language is. Share what your spouse's love language is. I want you to write these 2 down. And then I want you to write down some examples of things that you can do to speak your spouse's love language. And then on the back side of your card, I want you to fill out 1 to 3 things that you can do this week to speak your spouse's emotional love language. Fill her love tank, okay? Now on that card, on the back side, you're going to list those 3 things. And I want you guys to keep that card somewhere in your car, in your bathroom, in the kitchen, somewhere where you will be reminded of speaking your spouse's love language throughout this week, okay? Again, I think it's very timely. I think it was great that God had me come up here the week before Valentine's Day. I feel really, really proud about that. I'm going to leave this summary slide up. This is just a quick summary of all the love languages we talked about. But real quick, before I let you guys go, there's some resources. 1, I went to the bookstore and I bought a bunch of these books. So if you need a book, I have like 5 books, I think. The lady at the bookstore said, wow, you must need a lot of work in your marriage to buy all these books. So I got a couple books. There's online resources. If you just go to www.5lovelanguages.com, there's the survey you guys just did. There's a podcast. They even have an app that you can actually download. It reminds you to do acts of services or do different things to help your spouse. And then here's the great thing. This is one of my favorite. If you have the Bible app, there's a 7-day study for men and women on there. And all you have to do is just go into the Bible app, look under the different, the Bible reading plans, and one of them, or the study guides, and one of them is just type in Gary Chapman. And it's a 7-day plan that you can do with your spouse or individually. So those are some resources. So go ahead and meet up with your spouse. Again, the 3 things the things you're gonna do here is you're just going to share your love language, get your spouse's love language, express some ways that you can speak your spouse's love language, and then 3 things that you can do this week to actively participate in that. And then we'll close with some prayer in about 10, 15 minutes. Hey guys. You guys can keep talking, but just real quick, a couple quick things. One is I just want to say thank you guys again for the opportunity to come up here and talk to you guys. Again, I've been praying. I pray that the homework this week will be a blessing in your marriage. And as I was just talking to somebody, she was just sharing that the 3 things she's going to do for her husband, they're not big things, right? They're not life-changing things. It's just maybe making a little extra effort and going out of your way a little bit to speak your spouse's love language this week. And one thing that Gary Chapman says is if you invest in that, filling your spouse's love tank, naturally we begin to receive love from our spouse in a way we didn't see before. So I guarantee, even if it's one-sided for now and you're just the only one dumping love into it and investing love, you will start to see that come back to you. So I want to encourage you guys in that sense. I also just want to close this in prayer. I know you guys are all eager to get out to the Super Bowl. So, Lord, I just want to say thank you. I want to thank you for your affirmation of just having the ability to come up here, share your story, your message. Lord, I feel like there's marriages here that needed to hear the message today, and I just thank you that I could maybe have that opportunity to be that conduit of just share a little bit of this simple message. But again, like that megaphone principle, just something small on our side can make a huge difference to our spouse. So, Lord, I just pray as we go in our week that you bless the marriages here. Watch over us, keep us connected, help us to communicate our love to our spouse this week. And I pray that there would be a difference as we all come back next week. Thank you, Lord, for just your love and your presence. In your name we pray. Amen. Thanks, guys.